And good morning, New Mexico. We are 99.9 FM MA10. It's time once again for this fantastic show, the Rusty Nut Show. We want to thank all our listeners, all of you that listen up. We appreciate it very, very much. We want to thank Gabriel from the Auto Angel. Of course, he is known as the Rusty Nut himself. Gabriel, buenos dias, le Dios. How are you, brother?
Spoiled rotten, hermano. How are you?
Good, good. It's a great day. And of course, hopefully everybody had a great Mother's Day. How was your Mother's Day?
Awesome, man. We got to see the mother, the mama, the suegra, my wife. Everybody was happy.
There you go. Happy wife, happy life, brother.
No doubt. Discover card melting.
There you go. And of course, as I mentioned, we want to thank Gabriel of the Auto Angel, the Rusty Nut himself. We'd like to thank Advanced Auto Parts, proud sponsors of this great, great show. And you can catch this show not only on your favorite radio station, KSWV Radio, but you can also catch it on all that social media stuff, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. And we want to thank Bubba, our producer, for making this show possible. He's good stuff at it.
Out of way, Bubba. Thank you. So real quick, Patricio, the mission of the Rusty Nut Show is to educate listeners. So if you just fell on the dial or if you're a regular listener, you know, the purpose of the show is today's fleet. That means the vehicles on the road today in the United States is an average of 12 years old. So we're trying to educate listeners how to best decide what maintenance items or repairs you should purchase, maybe what ones you could do yourself, and which ones you probably shouldn't do. So every week we pick a different topic, and that topic is usually kind of influenced by something that's going on in the shop today here at the Auto Angel. So happy Tuesday to everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. This show is also an attitude of gratitude. I want to thank the Gonzalez family, you included, Patricio, for, you know, providing our listeners with a show like this that's intended to give back. This is a way we can share the 32 years of experience I've had in this industry and try and give back to help people make those choices to best take care of their vehicle. And by best take care of it, what are we trying to do?
Of course, keep them in front of the tow truck and not on top of the tow truck.
Orale, he's learning.
I'm listening. Hey, and real quick, Gabriel, and one of the things I love about this show is you mentioned, of course, educate, and it teaches us. But more also what it does is it gives us the things to think about when it comes to our second biggest investment, about really maintaining it, how to maintain it. Really, is there something that we need to do, whether to take it in or not to? And just how, like your mom's a good example that you use. She'll go to the church and to the store, and maybe that's it, or to visit her son, the Rusty Nut. But other than that, she don't go too much, so maybe you don't need that much maintenance.
Sometimes she drives over to the Pinta to visit her boyfriend.
Ah, boy, she still got it. That's what keeps her young, brother.
Hi, Mom.
You're in trouble, bro.
Anyway, the Pinta in. Anyway, let's keep going. So thanks for that, Patricia. I appreciate you kind of reinforcing how important this is. I got to thank our team here at the Auto Angel, David, Antonio, Todd, Emilio, Adan, Norma, and Owen too. Congrats to Adan. He's recently getting his ASC certifications. We're really glad and proud of him for doing that.
All right, Adan.
And, you know, Todd keeps them all going and helping all of our clients stay in front of the tow truck. We always like to say, you know, I got to say hi to my mom for sure, my suegra, G. Rose, and my sister Susana. And then we'll go into that red, white, and blue thank you. This is to all enlisted servicemen and women, active duty, stateside, abroad, reservists, veterans, and most of all, most importantly, is the families that support those brave men and women. So what we like to say about that is, you know, there's kitchen tables, dining room tables all over the United States, you know, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner that have an empty chair because someone is serving this great country, and that family is putting up with that, you know, person being at risk for you and me and everyone listening. So thank you to those families that support those brave men and women.
Exactly. And I think that we all have family members that have served or are currently serving. And so it's, as you mentioned, we live in one of the greatest countries ever. We want to thank our police officers. It is a crazy world out there. Our firefighters, we see where there's a couple big fires going on there in Arizona. And so we can sleep a gusto, you know what I mean? And we have our firefighters on call, and those that fight those crazy fires, jump from airplanes, the whole 9 yards. And so we appreciate everything that those that put on the uniform that they do for us and our families.
And that's, I can't say it enough times. You know, we wake up every morning and just do the best we can, but we have the freedom to do it. And with that, I'd like to say, you know, I want to say a special salute out to Donald Coleman. He's an Auto Angel client. He's a veteran, and he's a volunteer at Las Golondrinas. So a lot of you might know him from that. He's a good guy, Mr. Coleman. So Mr. Coleman, if you happen to tune in, thank you for the service that you provided for the United States.
Amen.
We want to move into our Azul Gracias. And so this is a part of the show where we always try and say, there's a blue collar out there, or maybe they got a white collar or a gray collar. It don't matter. What I'm getting at more importantly is there's guys and gals out there doing work that is almost thankless. They, you know, they're behind the scenes. They're the ones in the trenches sometimes, and they're getting the job done. And so we want to just thank them. And this time we're going to kind of bounce back to electricians, you know, and I joke, I call them shock absorbers, you know, the inside wiremen. And that's kind of my target today. These are the guys and gals that are, you know, can you imagine wiring up Buffalo Thunder and you got to do 6 floors with I don't know how many rooms per floor and every outlet every 6 feet? I mean, these guys are just constantly the same monotonous thing over and over, and it's got to be safe. It's got to be perfect. They use a level to make sure it's aligned, and before that, they ran the conduit and all these kinds of things. So to all those inside wiremen and wire women, we appreciate the work that you do, and don't get shocked.
Very good. And it makes me think too, just I know you think about PNM and those men that climb up the poles, or they're on the poles right there, and you don't know what wire's hot and what's, huh?
That's a lineman. That's different.
Well, but it still has to do with power and electricity and shock, bro.
The linemen are mad, bro, and the wiremen are mad. Those two, they don't get along.
Those pelitos you got coming out of your mouth, it looks like you stuck your finger in a socket.
That I've done before lots of times. I made myself a shock absorber. But yeah,
hey, you didn't say hi to Summer. You're in big trouble.
Well, Summer's in class today.
Well, anyway, you never know.
I know, because I left her there this morning. Anyway, we're going to get into the Kyovo of the day. So I got a client family, Michael and Julie Grimm. They're loyalists here at the Auto Angel. They listen in frequently. So hello to Michael and Julie Grimm. Also, Paul Padilla and the familia there, Padilla's Towing. And Eric with an A. Long time no talk, brother. Hope you're doing well. Patricio, the Kyovos are on to you.
Did Eric go in and visit you again or what?
Yeah, his Jeep's over here now. He broke it.
Ah, boy.
He kind of inspired today's show. We'll get into that a little bit more.
Never ask a little boy to drive a man's Jeep, you know. Anyway, I want to say hi to Rick and Ron City Baca. I've been on this kick, Gabe, on small businesses, the backbone of America, one like the Auto Angel. But I want to say hi to Rick and Ron City Baca of Big Joe, True Value Hardware. Yeah. And then, of course,
I went shopping there for Mother's Day. I bought my wife something over there.
Very nice. Yep. You gotta take care of the shop locally with our small businesses. You got Aranda's Plumbing. I want to say hi to Pat and Chuck and Ray and Nick Aranda. And of course you got Trish Desjardins, the office manager there. Good morning to Aranda's Plumbing. Good people. Okay, you just hypnotized me. Next.
Now we're gonna move to the Spanglish lesson of the day. The one and only Notorious La Norma.
Hola, buenas tardes, ¿cómo están todos?
Muy bien, gracias a Dios. ¿Usted?
También un saludo a todas las mamás bonitas desde Nuevo México. Esperamos que todas se las pasaron bien y que están bendecidas con todos sus hijos.
Amén. ¿Y cómo estaba su Día de Madre?
También muy bien. Sí, bueno. Muy bueno. Me trataron muy bien, muchas gracias.
Pues gracias a Dios. Y vamos a ver, Spanglish word of the day.
Va a ser esta frase, sad story, ¿ok?
A sad story.
Ajá, yo tengo una historia triste que contarles.
Ok.
I have a sad story to tell you.
Is that it?
That's it. That's it. Let's see what Gabriel is going to come with.
Tengo una historia muy triste para decirles.
Exactamente. A ver qué historia nos va a decir Gabriel que es tan triste.
Pero ¿qué tiene una historia con carros? ¿O hay muchas historias?
No sé. Vamos a ver qué es lo que pasó con Gabriel. A ver,
bueno, pues vamos a hablar Vamos a hablar con el Gabriel, a ver qué pa, por qué anda tan triste a Gabriel.
¿Verdad? Hasta luego, cuídense.
Bueno.
Chao, chao.
And you are listening to the Rusty Nut Show right here on 99.9 FM, AM 810. We want to thank, of course, the Auto Angel, Gabriel Garcia and his familia. Advanced Auto Parts, proud sponsors of this great show. And, of course, to all you listeners listening online as well on Facebook, we appreciate it very much. We are live on the radio, but also you can check us out on the social media tools that we have. Dale, Gabriel.
Ándale, let's get into it. So we tied in a couple things. ¿Listo?
Listo.
We tied in shock absorber, the electricians, that word shock absorber, and we're tying in sad story. So this is a sad story. Mr. Bob Bear, you've heard me talk about him before. He had a car that 2 or 3 months ago, after he shelled out $1,000 on new tires on his Carruch, now he's complaining that it sounds like a jet engine the faster that he's rolling. And so he pulls into the New Trail garage and he says, Ranger, what's going on with my car? And Ranger tells him the bad news. He says, your tires are cupping and you need to buy new tires. So off he rushes back to see Lee Garcia or Garcia Tires to complain that the tires he sold him are defective. And then Lee reminds him calmly and respectively, says, I strongly recommended that you needed shock absorbers. ¿Te acuerdas? So then that guy leaves, Bob Bear, Lee's all triste that he needs to buy tires again, and he still needs to buy those shocks because the shock absorbers were worn out enough that they ruined the brand new tires.
I got it. Okay.
So now it's time. So the story here, or the basics of it's going to be that you need to listen to your professionals, and if you're not positive that you understand, don't be afraid to ask questions. How soon do I need to buy these shocks if I buy the tires first? Because for a lot of people listening out there, to try and buy them all at the same time is just too much, or they feel like it's too much, or they don't understand the risk at hand. Go ahead.
No, so are you saying that shocks can have an impact on wear and tear on your tires? And what else can be, I guess, damaged if you want to ask that question?
There you go. And that's where we're going to lead into with this little sad story. The truth of it is this story, I'm kind of making fun of it. Like this, Robert Bear, he's listening to us on the radio right now going, I'm the guy that bought the tires that sound terrible now. But realistically, this happens for real. So I'll have a client show up here with that complaint that their vehicle sounds like, they say it sounds kind of like a jet engine. And when you get in and drive it, you're listening to the tires just kind of honing like that howl as they roll, and that's because of bumps on them. It's kind of like driving a dirt bike on asphalt. I don't know if you can relate, but
I could do that.
Well, you shouldn't be doing that anyway. So that's
you got to cross the road to get to the track.
No, you're supposed to take it in your truck, bro, or on the trailer.
Well, if you have a truck.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway. So we're going to revisit this topic. We've done it before. So those of you Mr. Know-it-alls out there, you might not be too excited to continue listening about shock absorbers, but it's important. And Eric with an A, he inspired the story today. He brought his Jeep in here with a broken shock. So I said, it's another time to kind of reflect back on this topic. So how many shocks does your car have, Patricio?
4.
There you go. What if it has struts in the front and shocks in the back?
4.
Attaboy. Good deal. So that's true, technically, because a strut is basically a shock absorber. So remember, this show targets 12-year-old vehicles. And the average car on the road today is going to be a front-wheel drive car, 4-door sedan, and it's going to have a 4-cylinder V6 and have struts in the front and shocks in the back. But basically, they're hydraulic shock absorbers all the way around. A ver, let's see your question.
Very profound question.
Mira, profound question alert, dice el Bubba.
Bubba. There you go, Bubba. I'm looking at Bubba now. He's nodding his head. Anyway, let me ask you. So, for shocks, is there, like a maintenance thing that you can do, or it's mainly when you take them in? How long do shocks usually last? And I guess that's the main question is, how long do they usually last, or should you just check them in when you're doing tires?
So your vehicle gets, let's say you follow the Rusty Nut Show and you get 2 oil changes a year at least. Some of you people commuting to Los Alamos get 4 oil changes, 5 oil changes. either way, I've always preached there's so much more to an oil change service than just the oil filter. One of that is going to be to inspect tires and shocks. And a lot of you have left a facility after getting an oil change, finding out that you need struts, and ignored that warning because you feel like they're expensive. You're not prepared for that. There's nothing wrong with your car. It feels fine. And you also feel like that entity might be overselling. You went in for a coupon on an oil change and you're leaving there with $1,000 estimate for struts. It feels a little bit uncomfortable, so you leave. And that's okay initially. But the real factor is that if your car has, back to your question, let's say you have over 50,000 miles. Remember, this shows 12-year-old cars, they already got 140 on them. And some of them are riding around on the original shocks. So legally, state of California follows MAP standards, motorist assurance program or something. And they use 60, I think, 1,000 miles as the guideline that once an entity offers you that, they're not overselling, even without any other physical proof, like worn out or leaking, or which we're going to get to. Just the fact that it has that mileage, they're not illegally offering you a service. Does that make sense?
Right.
So by telling you need shocks at 60,000 miles, you don't have to buy them, but they have the legal right to offer it to you based on mileage alone.
Another profound question, brother. Another profound question. So we're talking about shocks, and of course, you mentioned that it sounds sometimes when you are driving, it sounds like you're in a jet engine or you're driving a motorcycle or motocross dirt bike on pavement. Are there any other things that would make an individual that has a car driving their car that would make them think that there's something wrong with their shocks? Like, Sopanda, like spring loaded. There's a bull named spring loaded. Palo, man, you start fly through the roof or something. But are there things driving where you start bouncing around, the car starts swaying or something without making noise?
And there's definitely a bunch of reasons or things that you're going to notice from the driver's seat, but there's also things that you won't notice. So I'm going to go through them kind of in order, but we'll answer your question as we go.
Okay, vamos.
So back to the facts that I'm trying to establish. You got a shock on each corner, whether you call it a strut or a shock, you've got one on each corner. Anywhere there's a tire, there's one. So remember, those of you listening, a tire is made out of rubber and it's filled full of air, like a basketball. And if you pick a tire up and drop it, it's going to bounce back up. So tires are designed to be able to bounce over those potholes or bounce through them, bounce over bumps in the road to give you a comfortable ride and also to try and keep as much traction on the ground. So the job of the shock absorber is to keep the tire on the ground. Cars basically stand on their tippy toes, if that makes sense to you. So when you look at a car outside, each tire is only touching the ground in, you can envision about a 6 to 10 inch circle depending on the size of the tire. And really all trucks, cars, whatever, they're just standing on that little piece of rubber touching the asphalt. So the shock absorber's job is to do exactly that, absorb any jounces or shocks in the road and keep that tire on the ground. Carroll Shelby, he's famous for that. What was that, Ford versus Ferrari, that movie?
Mm-hmm. The movie?
Yeah, so that guy, Carroll Shelby, a lot of you more familiar since that movie with him. But one of his famous quotes was, there's never enough horsepower, just not enough traction. And again, back to keeping that tire on the ground. So it doesn't matter how good you keep your engine running, how good your brakes are. If the tire doesn't stay on the asphalt, you don't have traction. So you don't have horsepower. You don't have braking power. So it's critical. And those shock absorbers are also critical in keeping that tire on the ground. So I hope I helped you get that. In general, a shock absorber should last at least 50,000 miles. And that'll depend on where you drive, what kind of roads you're on all the time. There's some roads back here still off 14 that are washboard for miles. And they chew up shocks and struts in shorter times than that on some of these cars.
Are you saying that shocks are more designed to keep the tire on the road? Because my thought just thinking about shocks is that they're there to give you more of a comfortable ride than they are to keep a tire on the road.
And that's what most people believe. And I'm glad you mentioned it like that, is most of us, when we're offered a shock or a strut, when we went in for a service, we leave there thinking it rides fine. I'm not going to buy those, because we are led to believe that they're designed to give us a comfortable ride. And there's obviously, the whole car is designed to give you a comfortable ride. There's so much involved in that engineering process, to all the way to the seat cushion, to the tire size, etc. They want you to be comfortable in their car, so you keep buying their product. But realistically, you're right in that first sentence you asked, is the job of the shock is to keep the tire on the ground.
Learn something new every day. Are there any shocks that are, this is the profound one. You're going to love this question.
You're going too far. You're just going to have to settle down.
One more question, and then you can go through your list.
Hey, Bubba, can you mute him?
You're going to like this question. Are any Barry?
Hey, you muted him. Yeah. Woo, good job, Bubba. Thank you.
No, I asked it. Are any shocks powered by Whistleberry?
He muted it, so we didn't have to hear it. Whistleberry power, that's puro burrito, frijoles.
There you go.
All right. So no, there actually is gas charged shocks. Oh, so you're right. There is. There you go. So you would have thought you're being funny, and you're not even being funny.
I am funny.
So most shock absorbers are fluid filled. They usually have a liquid in them. They probably have like 6 or 8 ounces, not a lot. And the way it works is they have a piston inside that slides in and out of the fluid. And it's kind of like if you're in a swimming pool and you try to punch or kick in the water, you can do it, but the fluid reduces how effective that is or how fast it moves. And that's the job of the fluid in the shock absorber. So when you go over a bump, that piston is having to push through that fluid, and it does it, but it does it in a more controlled manner. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Andale. So let's get to what the number one things are that people are told are wrong with their shocks or struts. So we're going to stick with the word shock absorbers. Going for a service, leaking. Your shocks are leaking, sir. So some people might think, if my car is leaking, there should be what underneath it?
Aceite.
Charcos. You should have puddles. And you might leave there thinking, my car doesn't leak. You know, that guy's crazy, because the advisor, whoever told you, didn't take the time to explain. All they get is more like sweat. It looks like your armpits, Patricio, when you're playing golf.
Yeah.
They just sweat. All they get is that wet stain. All they get is that wet stain. So it doesn't really leak, but that's enough. If there's fluid on the outside of the shock absorber and you got over 50,000 miles and they're telling you that you need shock absorbers, you're not premature on the purchase.
Okay.
How do you like that? All right. Tire wear is a second one. So again, you already have that cupping. You already have the noise. Maybe you didn't even hear it, but they take you out and show you, look, your tires are cupping. You say, oh, I need tires. Well, yeah, you need tires, but you need shocks first or right away after. Don't be Bob Bear, but Mr. Bob the Oso. Don't be like that guy. You don't want to wait for your shocks too long and ruin your new tires. This is the one you were talking about. When the vehicle feels softer when you're driving it, it's almost like a boat sometimes as they wear out, because the car will rock more. So you come to, let's say you're on the highway, it's not as stable, you're getting that sway or rock, especially go from here to Burke where it's windy, it just doesn't feel as tight as it used to. The problem with relying on that is they wear out so gradually, and you drive your car every day, it's like your zapatos, you're not used to them they feel good to you, they feel normal, it's comfortable, it's home. So you're not a good judge by the feeling of worn out shocks from the seat of your pants. That makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Somebody else gets in your car and they're driving and they say, man, you need shocks, bro. That thing wobbles all over the place. And you say, yeah, orale, my car don't wobble. Yes, it does. And you come to a stop and it'll feel like a boat. It'll rock. And that's another key indicator that it needs it. So, and of course, tipping from one side to the other. And then there's this other one from the inspection side. When you hire a professional to inspect your vehicle, and they recommend shocks or struts, a lot of times they'll see that the base of the shock absorber is actually broken or worn out. So it has rubber bushings where a bolt holds the shock absorber to the vehicle, and those rubber bushings will wear out and the shock will actually bang or clunk. You can actually hear something. So when they get that bad, usually customers know it, and they'll bring it to a shop and say, hey, my car's making a noise when I'm going through the speed bumps back here.
I like
that
it.
Makes
I
sense?
like it. I wanted to make
the main normal complaints that people complain about: noisy tires, leaking tires, struts. Go ahead, dale gas.
No. I just want to make a comment that one of the things that we like to encourage people to do is find somebody that you trust, because you started the show, Gabe, that a lot of times people aren't going to hear anything. a professional is going to be able to maybe see that sweat or whatever it is that's leaking, or be able to tell what's the matter with it. But you may not feel comfortable. Somebody may say, well, you need new shocks or you need struts. And you're going to say, why? The car drives normal. And I think you started the show off this way. I just want to encourage people, you got to find a professional that you trust, somebody that's honest. And you're going to get what you pay for. And I know Gabe doesn't like for me to mention stuff like this, the Auto Angel, but you get what you pay for, and find somebody that you trust.
All right. Can we keep going now?
Well, you were going to say, hey, when I said you get what you pay for. Go ahead and comment on that.
Well, and I put in my notes today that may not necessarily be true with shock absorbers to a certain degree. So sometimes those of you listening out there might want to say, well, I want better ones or the best ones. And you might end up actually regretting that purchase. Or even some of you run-it-yourselfers out there listening, you're doing shocks for your Primo's pickup and you choose a heavy-duty shock. It's a half-ton, even a three-quarter-ton truck. But if it's empty most of the time, it's going to ride like a skateboard if you put too aggressive of a shock absorber because there's no weight in the back. And you're not carrying anything in it. And so the tires are just going to bounce. It's going to feel terrible. They're going to say, oh, you put shocks, but it feels worse. It gives a harder ride rather than a softer ride.
Right.
So be careful on the shock absorber that you choose. There are applications, GE Emulsion, they're one of my clients. They need heavy duty shocks. When they're driving around with their trucks loaded, they're construction trucks, they're full. Having a heavy duty shock absorber that's going to, be loaded all the time, they'll benefit from that. And in fact, they need that kind of shock absorber. So when you say that you get what you pay for, sometimes you get, maybe you still got what you paid for, but you paid too much and you got too much in a shock absorber state. The other thing is shock absorbers come usually with really good warranties in the aftermarket. Some of them lifetime guaranteed against craftsmanship, even against wear. So if they leak in that time. But most of you listening out there have made purchases that carry warranties and you forget, you don't know how to take advantage of that. But if you go to Lee for your tire work all the time, if you go to Ranger over at the new Old Trail Garage all the time, he's going to handle that for you. If it leaks, he's going to take care of it. Here at the Auto Angel, we're checking your car at least twice a year. If we find it leaking, we're going to tell you, hey, we did those struts for you last year, 2 years ago, whatever. We're going to warranty them. I have some clients, we warranty them 3 or 4 times just because of the roads they live on. And so their initial investment was expensive, $1,200, $1,400. But long-term, 9 years down the road, it really paid dividends.
So are you saying that shocks and struts, they come with a warranty?
They, minimum, depending on where you shop. So if you're at a TechNet, you guys play the TechNet commercials on, and I heard Lee's commercial too. He gives a 2-year, 24,000-mile warranty minimum. But a lot of the actual component, the actual shock absorber will carry a lifetime warranty. And again, that's up to you as the purchaser and also up to the professional entity providing you that service to be able to exercise that warranty where it's seamless for you. Effortless is what it should be.
I got another question, and then we got about a minute and a half. Gabriel, how much and I know we're talking about a 12-year-old car. What are people looking at for, whether it be shocks or struts, more or less? We can't, hold the.
It'll range anywhere from $300 to $1,200, depending on what it is.
Is that
you really get crazy on expenses when you get into these fancier vehicles? You got some with air ride suspensions, and you'll get into the $2-3 grand range easy.
Are you saying 300 per shock or per strut, or 3 to 1,200?
Usually shock absorbers, and I'm glad you asked that because usually we sell shock absorbers like shoes. You get them in pairs. You don't normally do one and not the other. You can do fronts and or backs, but usually you do left to right together, so in a pair. And so to answer your question, in a half-ton truck, you might have $200 in the actual shock absorbers. So a pickup, 2 shock absorbers, you got $200 easy in the back just for the shocks. So you got $100 to put them on, you're $300 in the rear easy.
Okay. Those are, we got a minute left, 45 seconds. You got to say it. And I want to hear you say it, that I asked some profound questions. I know it's hard for you to do that.
You asked some profound questions. No doubt about it, man. You're on the ball every time we're on the show. But we never got to the bottom of this, is if this is tornillos mojosos or dos vatos mocosos. What is this? What are we doing here?
Well, I think it's dos vastos muy humildes, very humble guys, muy guapos, very good
Guapos.
looking.
Oh, man,
blessed,
look at you, bro. Man,
And
you're not
más
gonna be able
antes,
to get out of the station with that cabeza all big, bro.
before we could do it and say that we're very good looking guys because we're just on radio, but now we're on social media, so people are gonna say,
See
"Man,
us
that
lying.
that's a but he's a liar." You want to talk?
Keeping my
He may be
mask
good,
on and
he-
the beard. That way
he
you
may
can
be
hide.
good looking, but not Gabriel. You know what I mean?
Man. So remember, if you're in the left lane and it's a passing lane, pass and then get into the right lane. Don't just sit in the left lane forever at the speed limit. You're in the way. Let
Get out
everybody
the
wants
way.
to go. Get out of the way. And if you're
Hey.
merging onto St. Mike's over here at Cerrillos, they made that lane. See, read the sign. You're supposed to just make a nice, smooth right turn. You're not supposed to sit there and wait for everybody to go.
Very
Read the
good.
sign.
Yeah, I like
It's
it.
self-explanatory.
We want to thank Advanced Auto Parts, great sponsors. They're on Siler Road, and it's always Gabriel of the Auto Angel, 424-3899. You'll like them. They're honest. They'll give you the true answer. There's Ranger, the new Old Trail Santa Fe Garage. He is great too, just like Gabe, honest people. And of course, Lee Garcia, good people at Garcia Tires. So Gabe, you have a good one, brother. God bless you. It
Thank
was
you,
a
bro.
good
Appreciate
show.
it.
Lots of
Cada chango
information.
a su columpio, bro. Cada chango a su columpio.
Keep your second largest investment after your home in front of the tow truck, not
Hi,
on
Mom.
top.
Hi,
God
Caroline.
bless you guys. We're going to go back to the studios right
Hermana
here on
Susana,
99.9 FM,
Prima Ana.
M810.